Welcome to Dungeoneering Done Dirt Cheap, where I, Everweird, am playing the Gunderholfen Mega Dungeon using the BECME D&D rules from the 1980s and 90s, as all compiled in the Rules Cyclopedia. When we last left our heroes, they had discovered this room that they needed to crawl into. It was a very low-ceilinged cavern, only about 4 feet high from floor to ceiling. The floor was covered with sand, and on the north wall was scrawled the message, "Find the floating level," and it seemed to be signed NYM, N-Y-M. They crawled back out, talked to their companions, and wondered what this could mean. They had previously found a scroll on this level. That's incorrect. They had previously found the scroll on level 1 in the Hobgoblin Chief's personal quarters. So they were putting together this message that they found on that scroll that said, "Past the upper levels lies the central shaft. It is this vast shaft that dives deep into the putrid bowels of this accursed mine. From this shaft, all is possible, and the way to the floating level can be found." So when they find this message scrawled on the wall that says, "Find the floating level," they've gotten a couple of clues pointing them to this. They know it's beyond the upper levels. They're assuming they're only on level 2. They're still on an upper level. And they're kind of wondering, like, how many levels are there to this place? Like, what else are we going to find? That scroll also spoke of danger down there, saying that it is 7 levels down and the gray dwarves guard its entrance. Seek the back way into their stronghold or death will be your fate. Previously, we've just been sort of crawling around looking for treasure and fighting monsters. It's been dangerous. The party has had a lot of things to worry about and contend with, but they haven't thought sort of outside of their own impression of this place. Like, it's been a very closed view of what they're dealing with. So we are waiting out here, or discussing this out here as a party. I'm going to tick off a couple of dungeon turns and roll for random encounters here. So nothing comes by as they are discussing this. And they're also wondering about, like, where to head to next. Do I have anyone down on hit points? Yeah, Talira is down a bit. So as they're having this discussion, they head around here to this crystal cave where they know if they hang out there for an hour, they can heal 1 hit point. Grebe, Zenith, and Belad are all down. Zenith and Belad go back to full. There's an interesting dynamic at play in old school games where you're just used to your hit points fluctuating and not being full. When you play games like 5th edition D&D, the default state is that you have all of your hit points. And if you don't, then you take these measures to restore yourself to full. Like, you wouldn't even think of walking around a dungeon until everybody stopped. And it leads to all these illogical things like people having long rests in the middle of a dungeon or something, which is a consequence of not doing time tracking or random encounters, to think that you could take a long rest in a dungeon. There's just a cool resource management that goes on in OSR games where Talira only has 12 hit points and can only heal 1 in an hour of this healing in this crystal room, or 1 overnight. So I don't think about getting her back to 12. That seems like far off. So I might as well just heal where I can and move on. It is around midday. They got started around 7 a.m. this morning. So they've had a good half a day in here. And they talk about that as they're in this healing crystal room. Those who are not resting and healing, so like Virago and Blaine and Faqual, are guarding the exits, looking around, trying to listen for anything or any clue to where they might want to go. One of the things they hear after spending that time is that they hear some sort of like water in this room. I don't think we've walked through here before, so I'm curious how I have it mapped, but I don't remember reading this description. After that hour, we walk in here, realizing I need to mark that hour on the sheet and roll for a random encounter. Nothing. So we wander into this room here, where we find several small rock pools about 1 foot in depth spread around the cavern. Cave fish can be found in the pools, and I can read they will provide enough food for 9 meals if all of them are caught. Right now, we're not worried too much about our meals. We have brought enough rations with us, and we continually return to Longfelt when we need to re-up, but we clock this as a place where we can go for some fishing if we need it. So we see a passage to the south and also one off to the west. I think when we originally waited, like a couple of us were healing in the crystal room, a couple of the party wandered in this circle around here. So I think that's how I mapped it. I just didn't happen to put those rock pools on there. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be surprised in this room here. So do we go west or do we go south here? I'm going to say 1 through 3 we go west and 4 through 6 we go south. That was a 2. So we're going to go west. If I mapped all this out when my party went on their sort of reconnoiter around here, I did not read these room descriptions. I think maybe I just drew the map ahead of us traveling in there. Nonetheless, I see 5 small land lampreys will ambush the party if we enter this mold-covered cavern. So not knowing what to do there, we just walk right in. The yellow is going to be my party, and the black die will be the enemy. Neither of us is surprised. We walk in, hear something moving, and we're about to get ambushed. We win initiative. I'm going to flip to the end of Gunderholfen to the bestiary to see if the land lampreys are described a little bit more than they are here in the encounter. They are not. Are they in the Fiend Folio? Gunderholfen seems to draw a lot from the Fiend Folio. So it's possible, I can just imagine this as like a lamprey eel, but it goes on land, and it has a special ability of blood suck. So it does 1 damage per round for 3 rounds. All right, we win initiative. We see these little eels swishing towards us across the sand in this room. I'm doing the mental calculation of would Faqual actually be frightened enough to cast Magic Missile. I think he almost does, but just holds back and draws that dagger, kind of steps back into the crowd of the company around him, hoping that they will protect him and take care of these things before he has to make any kind of move. So no magic is coming, no missiles. Talira will swing with her scimitar and misses. Virago swings with their staff and hits for 6 points of damage. So Virago takes out one of these lampreys right away. Blaine swings with his warhammer, does not hit. Grebe with her sword +1, does not hit. Zenith with her morning star does hit and takes out another of these. And then I got to grab the 10-sided die to accurately portray Balad and his two-handed sword. He does hit, but does less damage than the others here. So it is the lamprey's turn, or at least the 3 of them that remain. They just do an automatic amount of damage. They're going to head after the Dungeoneering Company, who has kind of stepped in front of Virago and Talira and Faqual. So after Grebe, misses. After Zenith, misses. After Balad, hits. Of course, Balad is like, so he's just a damage soak at this point. Balad gets hit and loses 1 point immediately and will lose more. For 3 rounds, he is going to lose blood as this lamprey, I guess, like the Sturges, is connected to him, sort of sucking his blood. So they went after the Dungeoneering Company. I roll for initiative again. The lampreys get to go first. They're going all over again at Grebe. Ugh, that's going to hit Grebe. So Grebe loses that hit point that she regained in the Crystal Cavern. At Zenith, hits Zenith. Zenith also down again. And I guess they don't have to go at Balad, so there's only 3 surviving, and they are now attached to the Dungeoneering Company. So they are kind of done with that. So the Dungeoneering Company, Balad especially, just screams like, "Get this thing off of me!" And Talira comes over and will delicately, I suppose, swing with the dagger. She sort of drops the scimitar to the ground, knowing that it would not do to swing this full scimitar at Balad. Misses nonetheless. Faqual now feels like he can step in, goes after Balad, does not get there. And I also forgot that Talira has a dagger +1 now. Virago still swings the staff and does not make it. Blaine has no choice but to swing at the Warhammer. So here comes that Warhammer. Natural 20 takes care of the one on Grebe. It is gone. So Grebe will lose no further hit points. And now Grebe turns to try to cut the one off of Zenith with her sword +1. Does not hit. Zenith onto Balad. Does not hit. And Ballad goes after Zenith and does not hit. So they're all sort of delicately trying to slash and get these things off of Zenith and Ballad, who now lose one more hit point each. And I roll for initiative, although there's nothing the lampreys are going to do. 3. It would go to the lampreys. There's no reason to roll morale or anything. They just continue. There's 2 of them left, and they are sucking the blood of Zenith and Ballad. Talira, dagger, +1, and 8 total. Still does not get there. Virago with the staff doesn't get there. Faqual with the dagger does not get there. Blaine just swings the warhammer clumsily, misses. Grebe, sword +1, gets there. Doesn't quite take care of this one on Zenith, but cuts it in half. Zenith on Ballad takes care of the one on Ballad. It is gone. Ballad then goes after the one on Zenith. Doesn't make it. Ballad loses 1 more hit point, and we just start it all over. Talira, dagger. Misses. Faqual, dagger. Gets there. Doesn't fully kill this thing. It is down to 1 hit point. Blaine, clumsy warhammer. Misses. Grebe, sword +1. Doesn't do it. Zenith will get there with her Morning Star, and 1 hit point takes care of the final lamprey. But yeah, they take a breather. Ballad is like, what was that? Detaches this dead body of this lamprey, throws it on the ground. They look around the room, seeing that there's really nothing there, just this mold covering everything. They're going to retreat back to those healing crystals again for another hour to talk about this and where to go. They all saw that there was a passage continuing to the west out of there. I'm going to roll a random encounter. No encounter. So the question is, do they go back through that passage where the lampreys were, or do they now head south? I think they're going to go back through the lamprey passage. So I'm going to roll that random encounter again. Nothing. They've rested enough for sure. It's around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This is probably the longest day they've spent in Gunderholfen. They walk back through that passage and then on to the west. They listen a little bit better this time, just trying to see what they can detect ahead, if anything. And Virago again comes up if there is anything in there. They hear a water dripping. They walk through this passage off the lamprey room, and they can see that there is no other passage off of this room, or at least they will see that as they kind of explore a little bit. But what they see are that the walls, ceiling, and floor are covered in this softly glowing green moss, glowing to the extent that they can douse their torch. They don't need to rely on that to light the way. Water is dripping down from the ceiling and collects in these numerous small pools. In the center of the room is a 3-foot tall, vaguely egg-shaped white rock protruding upwards out of the ground. We look around carefully to see if there's anything else in the room. Does Ballad try to eat the moss? No. Ballad's being a little cautious at this very moment. They do collect some of the moss, perhaps. The water that's dripping into these pools appears to be fresh and clean. This is moss, not mold, so they're not as worried about it, and they're not worried about like the explosion of spores like they were in the mushroom room. But they do start to circle that white rock, and they can see that about 1/3 of the way from the top of the rock, there's a ring of 9, what the book calls buttons, but I think my party wouldn't know them as buttons, but just as something that looks mechanical almost. I think what's on their mind is they see it mechanically and they're thinking this egg-shaped rock might open in some way. That's kind of what they're wondering. So they're going to send Talira up there to press a button. Not Talira. They're going to send Virago. Virago has a staff and does have the most dexterity, so could move away more quickly than the others. So Virago goes up there, and the others like hold their weapons ready for something to spring out of this egg. And Virago pushes one of these buttons in, and it sort of clicks in on the egg and stays there, stays clicked. There's like an audible click, and it's stuck in. And they all start to, they wait, and they wonder what happens. Does Virago press another button? Yes. Virago sort of looks back to their party, kind of shrugs, takes the staff, presses in another button. It does the same thing. It clicks, it stays in. The first button as well stays pushed in. They all wait. Does Virago push in a third button? No. At this point, they decide whatever's operating here might be too scary to continue this sequence. We possibly don't want to push in all 9 of these buttons, but we know where they are in case we get somewhere where we think a door needs to be opened or something. This is where we can return. So with nowhere else to go to the west, we head back to that room with the pools and the fish in them and decide we're going to head south. We probably spent 20 minutes in that room pushing buttons and inspecting everything. I'm just going to go ahead and roll a random encounter. We don't have one. Yeah, so we go back to the first room that had pools in it, the rock pools with the cave fish in it. And we're going to head south. So I don't think I've been tracking my torches very well here, but we light up another torch. We wait outside, like in this sort of passageway into this next room, and we're all going to listen to see if there's anything we hear. No one hears anything. There's some echoes in the cave, so if there were anything to be heard, we don't know what it is. Wow, what am I looking at? There's another monster I don't recognize here. Not in the Fiend Folio. And this one looks like it could be pretty bad. So we are kind of like peering into this, getting as close as we can. For sure, our torchlight is getting thrown into this room. And about 30 feet in, we can see this cavern is covered with large boulders. The floor is uneven and rough, so our movement is going to be restricted in here. We haven't gone in deep enough to find this door to the west. We're going to cling to this wall on the north side of that passage as we get in. So our torchlight is probably being thrown to about, these middle rocks here. And we are about to get ambushed by a group of Viltrock. Viltrock are sort of a stone-like bug. Medium-sized bipeds appear to have more arm joints than a regular humanoid would. Rock-like bodies allow them to merge in with other rock-like structures, so it sounds like I'm about to get surprised. Yes, they are camouflaged into the surrounding walls. So coming in the way we do, our torchlight does fall on that door, and we see this door to the west. Do we want to investigate further in here, or do we want to go to the west? As we sort of cling to that wall and move in a little bit more, 3 Viltrock will attack us and join the fight. So we are going to be surprised. We roll initiative, and they get to go first. Fair enough. So they're coming after Dungeoneering Company out there in front. One goes after Grebe. Definitely hits her with that natural 20 for 1 point of damage. Actually, it's 2 because it's a D4 plus 1. Another one goes after Zenith. Hits Zenith for 3 points. And the third goes after a Ballade, but misses. They are attacking with, I don't know, I guess just their rock-like fists. Oh, and they have 2 attacks. Yikes. Okay, after Grebe again, miss. After Zenith, that's not going to hit. Ballade, that's not going to hit. They have a 20 Thaco. All right, so on my initiative, the fighting party strikes back. Grebe with her sword plus 1. Misses. Zenith with their Morning Star misses. Ballade with his 2-handed sword. They have really great armor. Does not hit. Talira has recovered her scimitar and swings that at one of them, but misses. Virago, their staff misses. Blaine, the warhammer, oh my god, misses. And Faqual sits this one out, kind of creeping back towards that entrance as best he can. He, more than anyone, like he's holding the torch, he clearly sees this door to the west and shouts out to his companions like, let's go to the west. But they are momentarily like frozen, like we can't, that sounds like a terrible idea. We don't know what's behind that door. Rolling initiative for the next round. The Viltrock get to go first, and this time 3 more peel themselves off out of their camouflage on the wall. So I've got 6 of these things that each have 2 attacks to deal with. The first 3 continue their attack on the Dungeoneering Company. First one is a miss. Oh, next one hits Zenith for 3. Well, that's going to be 4 points of damage, so Zenith goes down. Ballade. 16, it's got a 20 Thaco. It does not make it. Then the other 3 go after Talira. That is not going to make it. After Virago, that will hit Virago for 1 or 2 points at this point. So we are getting battered on Faqual. 19 is going to hit. Fequal goes down. Oh my god. And then on Blaine, misses. The one that hits Blaine again, misses. Oof, it's going to hit Virago again. Does hit Virago. Virago goes down. 3 of my characters have dropped right now. And then this one hits Talira and misses. Striking Grebe misses. Striking Ballad will hit Ballad for 2 points. So this is maybe the worst fight we've been in ever. And we fought these hobgoblins. These are just rock monsters. On our turn, we are going to flee for sure. Going to consult those evasion rules. I'm not sure if I think evasion technically just happens before the encounter. I'm wondering if I even have enough people to drag my fallen comrades out of here. Yeah, evasion just happens before. This sounds like this is just movement that I would do. So on my turn, Grebe grabs Zenith, Blaine grabs Fequal, Ballad and Talira grab Virago. Talira is in terrible fear and says, get back to the crystal room. It's easy for us to get back there. We have enough distance, but we've got some difficult movement within this room because of the boulders and the fallen rocks and everything everywhere. So that's going to cut us down, but I think we're still going to be able to get to the healing crystals. And then I'll do a morale check to see if the, what are these called? Viltrocks follow us. But on our turn, we grab those companions of ours and drag them back to the healing room. I think there's another penalty to our movement for having to carry that much. I'm counting on the map how far this is. Minus the 30 feet of movement in here and probably another 30 for having to drag people. We don't quite make it to the healing crystal room. I had 2 people dragging Virago. Everyone knows how important Virago is to Talira and how central they are to this party. So I think with this added weight and everything, Blaine is going to grab Virago with Talira, and Ballad will grab Fequal. So Blaine shouts to Ballad, you grab Fequal, and Blaine casts Cure Light Wounds on Virago. So Virago pretty quickly gets all of their hit points back. Still being dragged. I don't want anyone to specifically have plot armor, but I think there's something here where Blaine is trying to manage their time and is willing to stay behind and get hit by these Viltrocks if he can provide some healing in the meantime. So yeah, he casts Cure Light Wounds on Virago. Talira then is able to sort of pull Virago along. Ballad grabs Fequal. Blaine is not going to move because of casting that spell. So everyone else gets back through this cave room, sort of 30 feet-ish, less than that really, like 20 feet short of the healing crystal room. I mean, if I'm playing it straight, no one else can take, like because of that full movement, no one else can take a healing potion, even if I allow for the fact that these are distributed around them and Blaine does not have all of them. So Blaine is waiting behind, or not waiting, but Blaine had to cast that spell and stay behind. So Blaine is sort of right there in that passageway. Zenith and Fequal are going to have to do death saves. Ugh, okay, Zenith has a 14. Makes it. Fequal has a 13. Fequal does not make it. The party gets back about to here. The Viltrocks do a morale check to see if they follow. Okay, so I've found what look like stats on the Viltrock, but don't have morale score because it's AD&D. Okay, AD&D or Osric morale is 50% plus 5% per hit die of the monster. So it's 55% for these things, I guess, because they don't even have a full hit die. They have a 1d6. They fail their morale check. Thank goodness. They do not chase us. I don't like doing morale that way. I was about to just roll a reaction die, which would have given me probably worse odds. Anyway, with Blaine standing there blocking that passage, these Viltrock kind of don't know what to do. They see the rest of the party flee. Blaine is brandishing his warhammer, fully armored, just sort of begging them after they've maybe seen a little bit of magic come out of Blaine to more or less resurrect Virago. Everyone else gets to the healing crystals. Blaine then takes off and can make it there within his turn. But it's when they get into that healing crystals room, Grebe and Ballad grab those healing potions, and Grebe administers one to Zenith. Zenith gets back 5 hit points, but is sort of like, and has to lie there, as per my rules, for at least a turn before she can do anything. But they're going to try to hang out here to regain some more hit points, of course. Ballad moves over to Fequal with one of the healing potions, and I think just for realism's sake, administers that healing potion. Fequal does not rouse. Talira has come into that room. Her concern is with Virago. They've propped them up against the wall, and Virago is also gasping, like has their hit points back, but just feels the close call of all this, and knows that they're not too far away from those monsters that just attack them so viciously. Blaine catches up a moment later, takes the state of things. Ballad shoots him this look, like looks up from Fequal's body, and Blaine sees the fear in Ballad's eyes and runs over to Fequal, sees that the healing potion has been completely administered, and just sees how pummeled Fequal's body is. Kneels down, says a prayer to his god, asks for anything to resurrect Fequal, not to have them face this loss here in this dungeon, but nothing can be done. Talira starts to notice this and screams out in pain, just starts weeping, like can't really tell what's going on. She is thankful that Virago, her soulmate in all these adventures, is well. But Fequal has been with them for a long time, and they are very close to Fequal. Fequal and Talira share a patron in Balfour, and this is a huge loss, and Talira is trying to calm her cries. Blaine is trying to calm her, like, don't draw attention to us while we're in this place. And Talira just starts shaking and crying, and this is probably as good a place as any. Talira feels this change in her, and just her party knows with this outpouring of grief that Talira is no longer chaotic. Her alignment is neutral. She is no longer this selfish person who is just concerned about survival and treasure. She can really value others' lives. Blaine and Virago are comforting her. The Dungeoneering Company feels this loss as well. Fequal was cruel sometimes, and they certainly didn't like witnessing the application of his cruelty as he coldly cut the throats of bugbears and this wizard that they faced just a few hours ago. But Fequal was a solid supporter of this party, and they've come to see, even though Grebe originally, was it Grebe or was it Irwin still with the division back then? There was a loss when Rye died in the Jeweler's Sanctum that felt like that was Fequal's fault, but I think the Dungeoneering Company has learned since then that Fequal's methods may have been chaotic and selfish, but ultimately were for the good of the party, and they're just crushed by this loss. And they spend an hour here. They're all going to regain that 1 hit point, but there's definitely a feeling that they cannot go on through this dungeon right now. This is too much. They are wounded, they are hurt, and maybe it hasn't yet set in, but it will definitely set in that they're going to have to answer to Balfour for the loss of Fequal. Or do they even report back to Balfour? Do they keep this secret, let Balfour think that they just perished in the dungeon? So they spend that hour there watching for monsters. At the end of that hour, I'm going to roll an encounter. Of course there's an encounter. Those Gorbles from up here have made their way down this passage, and they will be around this corner to the southeast. They're currently about 80 feet away. We're hearing this sort of squeaking, squishing walk as they approach us, and we will naturally evade. We are not interested in getting in any kind of encounter or altercation at this moment, and we can hear them clearly coming around that corner, so we know that we can run up this other northern corner and through the mushrooms where we have been before. My party size is now 6. There are 2 Gorbles. For a party of 6 to evade 2 monsters, we have a 35% chance. That is terrible. We hear them we decide we're going to sneak in this direction, and we failed. What does that mean? The other party decides whether to pursue. The Gorbles have... oh no, what is this? C hit dice below. That's because it can't be harmed with blunt weapons, and a pointed or edged weapon just kills it immediately. So I'm gonna say that's like 1 HD. So their morale is gonna be 55%. Do they pursue us? Yeah, they pursue us. We run off to the north, moving about 120 feet. Gorbles are slightly faster than we are. They are going to be able to catch up with us. Oh, this is terrible. We can actually make it all the way up here with our 120 feet, but the Gorbles can overtake us. When something pursues you, I'm curious what happens when it overtakes you. So we're caught by the pursuers. Combat occurs. Go to the combat checklist. And I guess we've also been slowed down because we are carrying the body of Faqual. So the Gorble attempts to attach itself to its victim's back with its claws. The two of them are running at us, and as they overtake us, they are jumping on the backs of Grebe and Zenith. Oh my god. Okay, so one gets attached to Grebe. I don't know why I rolled the d6. It only does a d4 points of damage. It does 1 point of damage to Grebe. The other attacks Zenith and just makes it. So the second one is attached to Zenith. It also does 1 point. Ballad sees this and swings at the one on Grebe with his two-handed sword. Totally misses. Well, I didn't really roll into initiative. Okay, so they catch up with us and they attack. Okay, right. So we have a chance. They get to go first, so their attack succeeds in the way that I narrated it, and we go second, so Ballad gets that swing off, but it is now fully our turn. Grebe swings her short sword at the one on Zenith. A 10 doesn't do it. And Zenith swings her Morning Star at the one on Grebe. 13 doesn't get there. Feeling a little bit like the odds are against me here. Oh, it's a 10 when attached to a victim. Okay, I'm going to re-roll that because I don't remember what Grebe had. So Grebe attacks. Doesn't really help me. So I had 14, and Zenith goes after the one on Grebe. Doesn't hit. Ballad just went. So Talira swings her scimitar at the one at Grebe and misses. Virago staff hits the one on Zenith with a blunt weapon, which does no damage. It just sort of goes boing off this like rubbery skin, and we realize like that's not going to do any damage. Blaine quickly pulls the spear off of his backpack and stabs at it. I'm not going to get too nitpicky. Only does 1 point of damage, but that's enough. Explodes the one on Zenith. Everyone around takes 1d4 blast damage within 5 feet. That's pretty much everyone is going to take 3 points of damage. So Blaine, Grebe, Zenith, and Ballad take 3 points of damage. This is a terrible thing, and they all take a step back like, oh no. Who's going first in this initiative? We are. So I have a chance to stop it from doing any more damage to Grebe, because it's going to do a 1d6 if it gets a chance, if I don't kill it in this round. Knowing the secret now, Zenith, that Morning Star is pointed, so Zenith just swings that Morning Star at Grebe, tells everyone else to get back, doesn't hit. Ballad with the sword at Grebe, at the one on Grebe's back, hits it. It explodes, doing 3 points of damage to the Dungeoneering Company. Zenith and Ballad fall. Everyone just shrieks. They're horrified. They have got a couple more of these discount health potions that they were able to wrangle. So Blaine and Talira quickly get those to Zenith and Ballad. One of them, Zenith, is going to have 7 HP, and Ballad has 4, but they have to rest for a minute. So they're resting as they wait for that healing to sort of take effect. They are outside of the mushroom cavern. Those are not poisonous mushrooms. They know they have this sort of split. They don't want to go to the northwest because that was where they last encountered the coffin corpse. They're going to go through this middle one. I don't think they've actually gone through there before, but they've deduced where it connects. So they run up there once they have a chance and have to approach that pool where they once fought the giant toads. The giant toads have all been eliminated at this moment. At least they've not come in from the rest of this dungeon layer. They're probably somewhere else on this level. But we're nonetheless careful and kind of slow down, making sure that we are guarding as we cross that pool. There's the room with the crevice in it, and then the magic mouth that steals our money, and then the room full of rat bones. And then we are there at the whirlwind. We toss the bag of cloth through it. We all step through, carrying the dead body of Faqual, and we breathe at this door, knowing that sturges await us in this room. Although there are 5 less than there used to be, we don't know how many there used to be, so we are not especially excited about this. So we take a moment to gather our senses. For some reason, I only marked off 4 of the sturges. That means there are 5 left. Now, we are a party of 6, and there are 5 of those. So here come those evasion rules again, because that is what we were planning to do. 6 of us, 7 of them, 50% chance of evasion. Here we go. We open that door up, ready to just run to the end of the hall. 80%. We don't make it. There's 5 of them in there. Well, I guess I don't know if they're out because they do often nest in this area. They'll be attacked by a group of sturges if they stay in this hall for more than 2 rounds. So I think just thinking that they're going to evade and being ready for a sprint, they make it out of there because they're not going to be in there for more than 2 rounds. They run up the stairs and they are greeted by their clay golem, Frank. Frank is holding a chest that is full of coins and jewels. And we are able to rest here in this room at the top of the stairs, knowing that this is the hobgoblin lair. We have explored around a lot here. We know the hobgoblins have mostly been run out, but we also know which room they are in. And what I was doing here was rolling random encounters just from the dungeoneering, or the dungeon encounters in Beckme. So I'm on level 1. I'm just rolling on here if I have an encounter. So they're going to have 1 encounter as they try to escape, or they're at least going to have a chance of, and it doesn't happen. So they are able to sneak out, moving as quickly as they can. They get up through those doors and outside. And then all of them, as they begin this walk back to their campsite and back across the Ganfell swamp, they are all silently but openly weeping. And they're feeling this like it's both a relief for their own lives and the loss of their companion Faqual. The first watch of the day is already done as they get out of there. So they walk through the night, and they're going to have 2 possible encounters in the Ganfell swamp as they walk. Nothing perturbs them. They get back to Longfelt at night, and they go again to the Temple of Cathalea, where they have brought other dead companions. The guards let them in. Do they wake Josephine? No. Another priestess of Cathalea greets them, and they explain their situation again. This priestess has heard of them and knows that they are somewhat doing a good thing by trying to cleanse this dungeon of its ghastly inhabitants, but also knows that they are risking lives of their companions and friends every time they do this. They go back to the Silver Flogger Inn. They're down a companion. Talira feels like there's not enough gold she can give to the Temple of Cathalea to make up for this. That's sort of been her guilty donation every time they've had to call on them for something. Blaine is also in his head because he feels like he could have done more to save Faqual, but just doesn't know exactly what that could be. He feels in his pouch that there's only 3 health potions left, and he knows that these are going to cost them about 400 gold from here on out. And that is where I'm going to end the session. They are back in Longfelt. They are staying at the Silver Flogger. They're having to think all this through again. I'm going to add up the experience points and see what happens with any leveling or anything like that. I'm also going to go back and check because I don't think I rolled a 3rd hit die for Blaine when he leveled up a couple of sessions ago. They're also going to have to decide if they want to try to recruit. Their recruiting score goes back down. They're at a -3. I think it's a no-brainer that they will try, but this may not just be a company member that they bring in, but maybe a 4th companion to the party that has to come in.